Alright. It's been a while since I basically recorded anything from my, base channel basically, but I recently came across something called the woke test. And I figured, why not? To sort of get the better, get to know Davion better, I would figure I might want to take this. See what it's all about. This is basically offered by the idrlabs.com, the Individual Differences Research. And here's the woke test. And basically to define this, basically the woke test is woke is a slang term that refers to one of the most prominent social movements in contemporary society. Its proponents see themselves as actively involved in a fight against social injustice and discrimination, while non-woke people tend to see them as hysterical or misguided. Are you woke? For each of the following statements, indicate how it actually resonates with you below. So yeah, basically this is a scientific free quiz you basically can take online to basically find out if you're woke or not. And there's the why you can basically use this, so it's free. It's got statistical controls made by professionals. You can take that with a grain of salt if you want, but I'm more or less just going to take this to have fun for most parts, so let's see how you do. Alright, so question 1 of 32. As society as a whole gets more wealthy, wealth will eventually trickle down from rich to poor, even in capitalist economy. Alright, so as the wealthy get more wealthy, or as the society as whole gets more wealthy. This is probably not true, just for a simple fact that historically it hasn't been true. Basically, the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. That's just basically how it works, and we're actually getting more poor at this point. So I have to disagree with this. It's basically trickle down economics is what this is basically all about. Hasn't really been proven successful. So next. So-called free markets are inherently coded to favor white men. No, free markets are favored to favor whoever is basically pulling the strings, so to speak. And by that I basically mean who's ever basically got power, so to speak. That could be basically the woke mob, so to speak, as maybe want to be referred to. So that's basically why I see Disney basically having a whole woke movies and stuff like that. No, they're basically coded to favor whoever basically offers the best product or the best services and stuff like that. So yeah, again, disagree. Actually, strongly disagree with this one. Women and minorities cannot truly be themselves while they live in a society ruled by white men. No, they can be themselves. And, society run by white men. That's the kind of a low statement, because we basically see society ruled by black men and black women and stuff like that. And, women can still be themselves. So again, disagree. There's some I'll note these questions are very open-ended, so you basically have to sort of take them with a grain of salt and think about them a little bit, how true basically they are. And most of them, you can basically have women and minorities basically gaining power over time. So yeah, it's it's not true. In this day and age, the patriarchy is largely a myth. So again, it's a little question. I have to really say that no, the patriarchy is something that exists. I don't think it basically is as prominent basically as it once was. I think the women now basically have a lot more sway than they usually did before. But how much do I want to basically say disagree or agree with that? I think I'm just gonna say neutral on this one, because unlike the matriarchy has made a lot more strides basically at this point, and you see a lot more women actions. Yeah, I'll say next. No human being can be free until every human being is free. No, that just means we're all slaves. Sorry. That's just how it is. If you let unproductive people think they're special, you're giving them an incentive not to improve. Yeah, I have to basically agree with this, by the way. If you basically give special treatment to special ed people, then they're just going to be like, a detriment to society. You really have to push them to be productive. So I have to agree with that one. Now, I'm not sure, but I think these questions, by the way, they are like different. There is like a, a full like, field of them to basically like answer. So you might get like a different set of, questions if you basically, do this yourself, this test. I'll basically leave a link to this, basically my like, video, but whatever. The conception that a real man is tough and daring should be replaced by a conception that a real man is caring and compassionate. No, I have to basically disagree with this. If men don't take charge and like, do stuff, then there's like no leadership. The thing is like, men are women are basically very much hardwired to basically follow like, men's lead in a lot of ways. And that may seem like very crude and like, sexist, but it is very much the truth. Men are basically a lot more like, prone with their adrenaline and rushes and stuff like that to actually make more tough, enduring like, decisions and stuff like that. That's just the role they basically like, evolved into. So yeah, I disagree with that. Doesn't mean like a woman can't be like, tough and daring, but men on a whole really do need to be like, more tough and daring than anything else. Caring and compassion is not a bad thing, by the way, for men to be, but it shouldn't replace it. Traditional gender roles are largely determined by natural evolution or higher power. I think that's basically a nice way of basically saying like, if you're atheist or like, Christian, basically your God or like, genes basically like, determine like, what roles basically you have. And this is like, partially true, by the way. I'll note basically looking like, the field of biology, by the way, you note that basically some like, species, like say wolves, I believe it is, they have like bigger women. And like, there's like some species that have like smaller men and like, women and stuff like that. That is basically very much the truth of the matter. And, natural evolution, does play a part in like this sort of thing. So yeah, I agree. In a conflict, one should always amplify the voices of marginalized so they can have equal representation. No, because you might who you're going to basically like count as marginalized is a thing, right? So do you count basically black people? Sure, maybe they like need it, but if do you count like how can I put this? Do you count basically people who are special? And let's put it that way. Special people. Do special people need equal representation, or can they basically get it some other way? So, no. Not everyone needs to have like representation. You just need enough. A welcoming immigration policy is a moral imperative, as all nations have responsibility to protect those seeking refuge and opportunity. So, is this supposed to be toward refugees or people like seeking like better like lifestyle and stuff like that like that somewhere? You should have a welcoming immigration policy, but I think like Canada does it best, where like we're very selective. Like you have to have very skills in order to join our nation. It's like that. So no, I disagree with this. I mean, you can basically take in all the garbage and stuff like that, like say American does, but you really do need like to think about it a little bit more. Though it doesn't really matter really at this point. Refugees are basically coming all over the place at this point, so you don't really have that much of a choice at this point. You're taking refugees, and that's just the right thing to do. That's a moral question really, not an immigration one. The climate has always been changing. What we're going through now is just another cycle. No, this is very much like something different. We're in the human era. Some like climatologists is basically sort of like indicate that we're basically in right now. So yeah, it's definitely changing because of us. People of color are oppressed by white beauty standards in our society. No. Whatever's beautiful is beautiful. If black people were beautiful, then like we basically call them beautiful. It's just like what people conceive as being beautiful. So yeah, no. Since women comprise half the world's population, it is only natural that women should possess half the world's wealth. No. Those who basically like earn the wealth deserve to basically have the wealth. If women deserve to have the wealth, then they deserve to have it. But you need to prove it, not like just be someone who basically get half of it. Pointing out that our cultures don't have gay or trans rights is just another way of perpetuating the oppressive status quo. Um, Yeah, I have to basically agree with that. I mean, just because another culture is basically like, doing something differently than us doesn't mean that we should like um, not do our own thing basically. So if we have like gay and trans rights, that's like fine. Basically, it's how they're basically applied is really a question. Hmm. That's just basically where is the thing, right? So pointing out other cultures don't have gay or trans rights, it doesn't know what production and process status quo. Yeah, I do agree with that, I think. So next. In general, all indigenous ways of knowing are marred by subjectivity and bias, lacking objectivity and evidence. Um, this is a question that I really don't understand. Really, like what it's basically sort of saying here. Indigenous is like a very like um, complicated word. Basically, shall we say? Basically, indigenous like Aboriginals. You basically talk about like that. You're basically talking about the people who are like basically first here. But like the first ways of knowing, I mean, yeah, there is like problems with them, but no, they can be just fine. So next. Science views the universe as a matter to be used in such a same way as white men view women and runners as objects to be exploited. No, science does its own thing, and like it can be reversed and stuff like that. But no, gotta love science. By the way, if you don't love science, then what can you really love? I champion those who are pushed to the margins, so that they may have an equal place at the table. I mean, yes, to some extent, I actually believe this is like important. By the way, and I give you an example basically here. If like if you don't champion basically the people who like don't have anything, then who's going to basically like push their rights? They don't have anything really, right? So you have to basically think about those like those people. So yeah, I do agree like champion the people who don't have the rights basically because if they don't have a place basically to sort of say anything, they're going to be like left out, and that may not be like of their own like desire to be left out. This might be left out. So agree with that one. I consider not having children out of concern for the climate. No, disagree. I mean, you have to basically take everything measure, a measure response to everything. So have children. I mean, don't have like tons and tons of children, but like have children, keep your society stable. That's important. I believe that unless something is done, the climate crisis could be completely out of control in the 5 years. No, I disagree with this. I'm not sure I fully disagree with it, but I think that basically like as like times have basically proven, we're not basically like in a death throes of like our society at this point, just because like the climate's basically gone like very bad. But I do believe we have to like pay attention to it. But it's not gonna be like dead in 5 years or planet or anything like that. We should welcome those who want to come here if we want to create a world where everyone has an opportunity to reach their full potential. No, I believe like you have to basically keep some people out in order to like make your society like prosper. If you basically like to just invite everyone in, it's not going to basically like help your society out, and they're not probably not going to be better off. So you have to take in like measure amount of people. We are all citizens of the world and should be allowed to live where we want to create a more just and equitable world. No, I disagree with this as well. I mean, the thing about this one basically here is that like you can't just live wherever you want to. People have to be respect like other people's like habitats and stuff like that, and like not basically butt in where you're not wanting to start wars and stuff like that way, so to speak. Anybody who is not white male is in some sense oppressed in our society. No, I don't think so. Do I want to say fully disagree with that one, or like partially disagree? That's the question here, right? Because I mean there is like some oppression, of course, but um I think white men are just as like oppressed as like colored men, and like I don't think like race basically comes into it that much. But then again, there's also like the fact like you look at say like the blacks and stuff like that, they are being like discriminated against for like no reason still. So partially disagree because there is like some issues just like not just because like you're white male, it means like you're above this sort of thing just because you're white male. Assuming that all women have vaginas is just another way of perpetuating oppressive stereotypes. No, I have to draw a line at some point. Basically, at some point, like, a woman is a woman, a man is a man. That's how it is. You may not like it, but, that's just how it is. I believe that other cultures and minorities may have ways of looking at physics and mathematics are just as valid as Western way. Maybe. Maybe they could. But, is it basically, proven? I'm not really sure. I mean, is chiropractic like a proven thing? No. You have to basically take a logistical measured response. That's what science is basically all about. Climate change and white supremacy are two sides of the same coin? No. They're completely different. Using brain imaging or genomic sequencing to recognize race or gender stereotypes can never be scientifically justified. The thing about science is that yes, it can justify stuff. I mean, that's the thing about science, it's immoral. So you could justify it. It wouldn't be like, a very ethical thing to do, but yeah, it would be moral. Or something that science might be able to do. We have most to learn from the people who are most oppressed. Yes and no. I have to be really neutral on this one. You always have to learn from both the oppressed and non-oppressed. You have to basically learn what basically what's the dirt on the ground, so to speak, and what you want to basically avoid to be in that sort of situation. And you want to be looking at the sky and a cloud above, and what you can basically do to basically obtain that position. So yeah, I'll be a sort of neutral. I have to basically learn from both people. Disagree. I believe that given the same socioeconomic conditions, all groups of people would have the same average IQ. No. Hate to say it, but there is going to be some situations where if you give it all groups of people whatever same things and stuff like that, they are basically going to have problems because culture and stuff like that. So disagree. Not a day goes by without me thinking of how I can fight for a more just and equal society. Disagree. I don't really care that much about most of the time. There are only two genders. With how the world basically is at this point, I respect that there is trans genders. I expect there's people who basically don't see themselves as being either male or female. But yeah, I believe it's only two genders basically, and there's there's maybe some people who are in the middle and stuff like that, but there's still only two genders. So I agree with this. Hierarchies are necessary to maintain order and prevent anarchy. Yeah, I mean, you need to have leaders and you need to have followers, or else you're not getting anything done. Lax immigration controls undermine our nation's national security and put a strain on our resources. Yep. I mean, we can see that basically in the United States right now, so not really much to say, so let's finish it. I guess this has some precedence like that, but whatever. Good job, AVG. Okay, let's finish and see how woke I basically am. Alright, so you are not woke. Okay, so there you get to get to know me a little bit better. I'm not woke. And that's not really surprising for me, I don't think. The thing about me is that you have to basically have some stability, I think, in life. I mean, as a younger child, person, I might have been a little bit more lax on basically helping the green climate and stuff like that. But being a little bit older at this point, no, I just don't care as much anymore. So here's basically an explanation what this all basically means. So you can see basically I have empowering underdogs a little bit higher than most of the stuff right here. I have next is alternative knowledge, and then after that I basically have fighting power over here. So those are my strongest things, but even though they're still very, 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 very weak. But anyhow, let's look at fighting power. empowering underdogs, and alternative knowledge. So, fighting power. So fighting power involves what the woke see as a critical understanding of societal structures, power dynamics, and roots of oppression. For people who are woke, fighting powers entails resisting or negating the historical and ongoing impact of discrimination based on race, gender, sexual orientation, class, and other societal categories. So, basically, the history of, how people have been oppressed and stuff like that. Alternative knowledge basically denotes an ongoing process of learning and engagement with what those who are woke see as marginalized lived experiences and ways of knowing. It involves staying informed about how minorities are or other cultures may have alternate ways of doing or understanding the world, and engaging in critical dialogue with them. Educating oneself on one's understanding of the world as it derives from these diverse perspectives. So, important thing basically, you have to basically, reach out, but you have to be very lax, or not really, and you be guarded. That's the word. You need to guard what you're basically listening to is the thing, right? So be conservative, I guess we'll say. And then empowering underdogs. According to proponents of the woke movement, morally conscious individuals have ethical duty to empower marginalized individuals and communities so as to challenge injustice and create a more equitable society. Those who are woke believe that the collective power of such actions will bring about positive change. So, basically it's our ethical duty to empower marginalized people, and I think that's basically a good thing to do. You have to basically think about the underdogs at some point. You don't have to think about it all the time, but you do have to basically champion when you need to. And that was basically my highest score showing thing right there, right? The empowering the underdogs, but whatever. The other stuff basically here we have climate sustainability. I mean, I guess that's basically the next thing I was basically strong in, but not too strong. Next was probably social justice and challenging norms, and then we basically have intersectionality, solidarity, and global citizenship as well. So really weak stuff. Second terms social justice, so translates into what those who are woke see as an active engagement in the struggle for social justice. This engagement can take various forms such as participating in protests, organizing community initiatives, supporting marginalized groups, and advocating for policy changes. So, protesting, rioting, stuff like that. Yes, I'm going to say rioting is basically in there because it is, what the BLM have basically been doing. So, yeah, I'm glad that's pretty low because I didn't really support that sort of thing. Challenging norms entails uprooting or fighting what those who are woke see as prevailing oppressive norms and assumptions that perpetuate injustice in our society. Their commitment to challenging norms encourages questioning the status quo, examining one's own biases, and disrupting systems that perpetuate inequality. So, there is a time and place for disrupting stuff, but, I think it should be rarely, rarely ever used. So, I basically, believe that's a good, place where I basically input. Intersectional solidarity entails what those who are woke see as a fostering empathy toward marginalized groups and a sense of solidarity with those fighting for social change. It involves recognizing shared humanity and advocating for rights and dignity of all individuals. So, I mean, basically, it's championing marginalized groups and fostering their sense of solidarity and stuff like that. No, I believe you have to basically look at it wholes, more at this individual person. So, group basically as opposed to individuals sometimes. And then climate sustainability is basically down here. And global citizenship as well, I guess, because I didn't really get to that one. So, global citizenship. Among those who are woke, the moral and ethical change that they seek extends beyond local and national borders, recognizing interconnectedness of global issues and need for solidarity across communities. People who are woke therefore tend to promote a global perspective on social justice and human rights, often advocating for migration and employing slogans like "No human being is illegal." Yeah, I'm not a global citizen. Basically, I believe there should be borders and there should be walls for a reason, because we're all different. I live in Canada. We're a mosaic for a reason. Alright, so, climate sustainability. Proponents of the woke movement see the climate crisis not just as a serious threat to the planet, but also preoccupy their thoughts with how climate change can have impact on vulnerable communities, such as those of developing countries. To them, climate change is thus not just scientific or an economic issue, but a moral one, deeply interwoven with the quest for social justice. I'm not really sure how I basically see this as being connected with the woke movement, by the way, climate sustainability. I see it as a very much his own thing. And that's basically, I guess the next, next thing I was basically highest on. But, I believe, the climate is important, but, probably not for this, really. Alright, well, there's basically like, my sort of standing basically on like the woke test. I'm basically not woke. And I guess like most people are usually like, you're like, neutral when it basically comes to wokeness, or maybe like a little bit more like, in like the middle, like, 40 or 60%. But whatever, I'm not woke. I think that's basically a good thing. Alright, all, take care.